we were supposed to have Jason Fuller from the Victorian government speaking to us today, but instead you have me presenting some of his information. But this leads into the Victorian state government has really upped the ante in the last couple of years. They have been leaders, I guess, in terms of their presence in the region. They've had offices in key cities within ASEAN in the last for many years now. But it's sort of ramping up now, and in the last couple of years they have had the Deputy Commissioner is based here in Kuala Lumpur. The Commissioner themselves was in Jakarta for some time, but is now the new Commissioner has been stuck in Australia, but has just been in Singapore for a while, but has just recently gone back to Australia as well. So this is another example why remote internships work, because it's the way that we work. You know, it's everybody's working online, and so you shouldn't be frightened of a remote internship. But yeah, so why ASEAN matters to the Victorian state government is in terms of what it can provide in terms of trade and investment, and the fact that, you know, they have they've invested heavily in staffing and resources into the region shows just how important it is. In 2019-2020, the financial year, Victoria's exports to Southeast Asia was over $4 billion, and that was 14.5% of Victoria's global exports. So that's a huge chunk for that small part of the world that we're looking at on the map. And as Thompson alluded to, you know, with difficulties with China recently, that is becoming even more important. And as I mentioned in the opening comments about ASEAN, it is one of the, you know, the fastest growing middle classes in the world, and has a huge increase in digital literacy in the last 10 years or so. So it's become very, very important. The internet economy is huge, and that has been a huge focus of the Victorian government, actually, is how to capitalise on that, the internet economy for export. Pretty much anything is on the table here. So advanced manufacturing, creative industries is huge here. Digital technologies, earth resources. The Lynas plant here in Malaysia is one of the world's few companies that mine rare earth, which, you know, is not without its problems, as you can imagine, in terms of waste, and requires really careful government to government dialogue to ensure that, you know, that's allowed to keep operating in Malaysia. Food fibre, like wool and things like that. Agriculture is huge. Food and beverage is enormous. There's not much that we can't get here in Malaysia that comes out of Australia, but even in particular, some of the brands from Victoria. When I first came to live here in 2007 and went to the supermarket, I was absolutely astonished to see that Meredith's goat's cheese was on the shelves, and that's a tiny company. It was a very tiny company then. It's not a huge company now. Comes from Ballarat. So it's a very small company, but they export and still are exporting their goat's cheese to supermarkets in Malaysia. There was, you know, some things we couldn't get. You know, I could never buy beetroot and things like that. The milk was local milk, but now we have, I think we have 3 dairy companies now providing fresh milk to Malaysia, as the demand, again, for those kinds of products from the middle classes drives it. Healthcare and aged care, we have universities that are working with local universities here to upgrade skills in that area. International education, of course, is huge in terms of the number of students from the region that, you know, that are studying in Australia and in Victoria in particular, from the region. I think, you know, Victoria considers this, you know, considers themselves having one of the largest ASEAN populations. So it's something that they carefully, you know, nurture and take care of. Medtech and pharma is becoming increasingly important here, especially in Malaysia, I think in Thailand, and also in Singapore. We have A-Star in Singapore. There's a huge, you know, biotech hub being built here in Malaysia. Professional services, of course, are very easily transferable across borders. Lots of my colleagues in the Malaysia-Australia Business Council and the Chambers of Commerce in Thailand and Vietnam are involved in professional services. Tourism, of course, is huge for the region. And e-commerce, of course, is the one that has really taken off, with the fact that even people, people in Myanmar that have never had a computer, in the last 10 years have had access to smartphones. So, that in itself within ASEAN is an interesting progression, where we grew up in Australia, starting with our gigantic desktop computers, and then to laptops and maybe tablets, and then smartphones. Whereas in various countries in Southeast Asia, they've just jumped immediately to smartphones, and even kids have them, so that it provides a platform for engagement that didn't exist 10 years ago. In support of all of this, Victoria has instituted an export recovery package, which is worth 15.7 million across the board. And it's about addressing logistics and supply chain issues. So once upon a time, if you wanted to export your goat's cheese or your olive oil or your wine or whatever, you had to come into country and do, a mission where you, went around and, met people and had conversations and had discussions, and then you had to find out how you were going to get it into market, and you needed a distributor here and all that sort of stuff. Well, the e-commerce has just changed all of that. So businesses are now doing virtual trade missions, which is really cool, which, not only helps save the planet, because we're not having, so many people jumping on planes perhaps, but it's, it allows people to actually talk to their, potential partners via Zoom and other, communication platforms. But it also means that the logistics and the supply chains are already existing. So for instance, where once upon a time you needed to, if you had a product you wanted to sell in market in ASEAN, you need to get on a plane and come over and meet the people and put all those steps in place. Now you can use a platform such as Lazada or Shopee or somewhere like that, that already has those distribution chains set up, and it's a matter of just moving your products through them. So that's a huge, that's a game changer for export from Australia. International education, as I mentioned, is Victoria's largest export, with a number of students from ASEAN, and increasingly coming from, once upon a time when I was first involved in this industry, the students that came to Victoria to study were Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Hong Kong, which is outside of ASEAN. But now probably one of the larger ones is Vietnam, where students are coming in increasingly large number as the economy grows there, and the country moves more towards a developing nation, and and also we have campuses. So we had for a very long time 3 campuses here in Malaysia, and we had RMIT in Vietnam. We now have Swinburne has just opened a campus in Vietnam. University of Wollongong has opened a campus here. They've taken over another college here in Malaysia. We have branch campuses of West Australian universities in Singapore. So this is something that transnational education is something that's becoming really important as well. And as I mentioned before, the Victorian government has a very strong presence with offices in Jakarta, Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, and Vietnam, considered the hubs of the region. Other packages that come under the export recovery package is the Global Gateway, which is the grants which are to support Victorian exporters to help them stabilise their business and develop and adapt their export strategies. And the e-commerce accelerator program. So that's about, it's actually providing a platform to, help companies that want to do this stuff. It's already here. It's there. The government has actually set something up that is, plug and play, that allows people to, not have to, go to a huge expense to do all this themselves. It's already there. So that's how it shows how serious the government is about engaging with the region. So that's, in terms of trade and investment. So it doesn't mean, so for students, I guess, they think, oh, well, I can't see myself ever working in Southeast Asia. I intend to just work in Australia. I can't see myself as working overseas. The fact is that with the growth in trade and investment is that you are more than likely to be working for a company that is going to be doing something internationally, or especially in ASEAN, at some point, because that's where the market is leading.